one of the youths said, "What you doing?" I smiled and said, Is this a robbery?" "Sure, yeah, it's a robbery. I regret to inform you I have no money, no jewelry, no electronic devices. I would strip off all my clothes for inspection, but I don't think you'd like that. In fact, the only thing I have of value on me is this." I took out the envelope that Ix had given me. "The fuck is that?" "I don't know what's in it, but it was given to me by someone who is a close personal advisor to Prince Charlie." Bollocks. "I was dropped off a minute ago by the Hammer. Do you know who he is? If I'm interfered with, he'll chop you up and feed you to the rats." The youth wavered, then said, "Jog on, Grandpa." I jostled through their midst and said, "Good evening, gentlemen. What was the world coming to when decent people could be accosted by ruffians in the city of London? The ubiquitous security cameras were supposed to keep a lid on this, but their effectiveness was sorely limited. I concluded there was no substitute for human observation, human judgment, and human action. There was the deficit. Alone again, I went to the Trampier townhouse on Artillery Lane. It had been in the family for hundreds of years. Currently, the only permanent resident was our caretaker, Benjamin. He was a light sleeper in any case, and I figured he'd be awake at this time. Sure enough, when I rang the bell, it was a few moments before I heard his voice. "Yes?" "It's Andrew. Master Andrew, what are you doing here?" "I need a good night's sleep, Benjamin." "Of course, at once." He opened the door, let me in, and re-locked the door. He was in his 60s or 70s, I think. He had always looked old to me, so he did not appear to age. He gave the impression of permanence and reliability. As long as I could remember, he had minded the Artillery Lane house, and he kept it well. He said, "Your room may be dusty, but it is otherwise in order. Fresh tuna sandwiches in the refrigerator if you're hungry. Good night." He shambled off to his quarters. "Thank you, Benjamin. Good night." I was hungry. His tuna fish sandwiches were divine. He made the bread himself. It had a thick, chewy crust and was well leavened and full of holes which allowed it to toast evenly all the way through. The mayonnaise was also bespoke, containing only eggs, avocado oil, and apple cider vinegar. The filling was replete with horseradish, chopped Polish pickles, and fresh ground black pepper. In addition to the Polish pickles, he kept the cupboards well stocked with his pickled green beans. I took a plate of tuna sandwich and a jar of beans up to my apartment on the 3rd floor. It was dusty, but I didn't care. After I placed my food on the bedside table, I opened a window. In came cool air and the murmur of the street. I filled a glass of ice and mid-grade scotch and flopped on the bed. I sipped some scotch, then picked up the sandwich and practically inhaled it. It tasted better than anything I had on Asgard 1. That consumed, I commenced sipping scotch and nibbling on brine-filled, crunchy green beans. In hindsight, I should have grabbed a fork to get the chunks of garlic from the bottom of the jar. I closed my eyes and relished my contentment. For a few moments, all was well, but I had to think before I drifted away to dreamland to sort out what I would do the next day. Though it was against my nature, I felt the curse of knowledge afflicted me with a sense of urgency. My experience aboard Asgard 1 and everything since seems surreal now, but I knew it happened, and I believed every word Tetsu said. I certainly had to believe what I had seen, and I had seen a lot. What else could I do with this information but the course of action I had chosen? My fate and that of my family was tied to the fate of the human species. When the species was threatened, all humans became my family. I would do whatever was necessary to secure the species, and I would not let anything take precedence over that goal. I'd been rattled by Chauncey. He got me thinking that any number of people and agencies were out to get me somehow. And this agency, anxiety, led me to seek the protection of Prince Charlie. But instead of reassurance, I found resignation. That is, Ix convinced me that my great labors to find safety were futile. Chauncey wasn't watching me, but Ix was. He said so. And I had no recourse against Ix. None. Charlie was my last hope, and Ix was with him, or vice versa. So I was forced to accept Ix's promise of safety at face value. The practical result was that my anxiety vanished. A lack of options can be a relief from worry. The relief of a cornered rat, perhaps. Regardless, I resolved to have no worry that night. Maybe another time. A thought occurred to me. What if my ride with Chauncey and Marvin was designed to drive me to Charlie and thus Ix? It was possible. I wouldn't put anything past those devious bastards. Then I wondered, could Tetsu be an antidote to Ix? If so, how would I contact him? I had been in no hurry to get a phone or some other such device, but now not having one was an inconvenience. What if I wanted to talk to Juno? I didn't even know where she was. She'd like it here with me and Artillery Lane, I felt sure. No, I shouldn't worry about Juno. I could send Tetsu a message by regular channels tomorrow, maybe. The security of my messages had been guaranteed by Charlie, and I could forget about that. Almost asleep, I bolted upright. The letter! Ix's letter! I ripped open the envelope to discover documents from the Prime Minister's office. They were credentials for me to visit the Flotta submarine base on Scapa Flow. I didn't know such a place existed, so I assumed it was classified. There was also a handwritten note in an elegant, cursive script informing me to make contact with a man wearing a shark's tooth sports coat and a green tie. This would be at the Seaside Inn at the northern tip of Britain in a week, give or take a few days. He would get me into the submarine base. The note was signed, Ix. The submarine base was not Trivett's big secret, I suspected. There had to be more. Did I even want to know? I couldn't imagine how it would be relevant to my primary mission, but it might. Also, Trivett seemed able to track me at will, so it behooved me to humor them for now. And in truth, I was curious what they were hiding, what they thought was valuable enough to trade for Tetsu's secrets. So my immediate plans were set. I'd form a corporation in the morning, and then figure out the best way to travel 1,000 kilometers from London to John O'Groats. I ate another pickled bean and finished my scotch. Then I closed my eyes and went to sleep. For some people, falling asleep is as easy as turning off a light. For me, it was an acquired skill I had to get good at. I woke up from a dream. After I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, all I could remember was that I was on Asgard 1 and Juno was there. I missed her. My breakfast consisted of a fistful of pickled beans and a drink of warm scotch. Then I showered and got into a fresh suit. I regretted leaving the room in semi-shambles, but I felt certain that if Benjamin knew I was working on a plan to save humanity, he would understand. Into Artillery Lane I stepped, grateful that it was so narrow. This way I could ease into the grey daylight of a London morning in autumn. After a bit, I got to our legal representatives in the city, the firm of Ham, Jones, and Green. I walked in and told the receptionist, "I'm Andrew Gray, and I'm here to form a corporation." She blinked and said, "Corporate law isn't our specialty. Perhaps you went to the wrong place?" "No, madam, this is the firm that handles all our legal business in the city." "Who did you say you were?" "Andrew Gray." "Excuse me." She got up and went through a door behind her desk. A minute later, she came back with a fat and tall, balding man in a suit. Roy Green, one of the partners. "Good morning, Andrew," said Green. "I have a few minutes available." "Oh, excuse me. Would you like to speak in my office?" "Please." "Follow me." We went through another door and down a carpeted hallway with floor-to-ceiling wood panels. "How's your father?" "He complains all the time, but he's well. Still driving the ball over 300 yards consistently." Green chuckled. "I was never a match for him in the driving department. I'd have to beat him on the on the green, if at all." We entered a stairwell with black and white marble steps and stained glass windows. Our footsteps echoed as we went up. "How about you? What have you been up to?" "Just got back from vacation. Offshore casino." "Really? How exotic. Did you win any money?" "Sadly, I didn't play any games. I don't gamble." "Oh, I thought you played poker." "That's not gambling." "It isn't? Okay, well, your vacation was still good, though." "I suppose, but I'm more tired now than when I left." That's always the way, isn't it? He let me into his office and shut the door. "Yeah, it's a wonder more people don't just stay home." "That's me, work and home, mostly work. Now what's this about you wanting to form a corporation? What's it for?" "Large-scale infrastructure projects. Don't ask me why. I can't understand it myself. I like to just form it." Interesting. Okay. What I need from you is a name and 3 directors. A name? I think Greystone would be a fine name. Green chuckled. "I'm afraid not. The probability that such a common name as Greystone isn't taken approaches 0. You need something more original, I'm afraid. Have you put much thought into this?" "What? Oh, bollocks. Greystote." "Excuse me?" "That's what I want to name the corporation. Greystote." Greystone? That's not a proper name for a corporation, Andrew. Good. That means it will be available. Okay, Greystone it is. He looked unhappy. And the three directors? Well, I suppose there's me and, might use your phone to get the other two? He sighed. If you must. He handed me an ancient phone with black cords dangling everywhere and a manual dial to get the numbers. Here you go. Make your calls and I'll be back in about half an hour, okay? Thank you, Roy. You're too kind. I started dialing when he left. I knew the numbers to Trampier Manor and Brenda's pub by heart. Easy call first. Brenda's pub, Brenda speaking. Hi, Firebrand. Andrew, what? How are ye? I'm back from abroad, and I need to make a corporation. This requires 2 more people, and I only trust 2 more people. Will you please be a director in my corporation? What? Would there be any liability to the pub? No, none. It wouldn't be connected to the pub at all. You'll be rich. Just say yes. Well, I suppose if that is the case, then yes. What do I have to do? I'll have my lawyer send you some papers to look over, and when you sign them, you're a director. All right? Okay. Now that you're back on Terra, when will I see? When next I come back to the Dale. I'll hold you to that, Andrew Gray. See you soon. Then I called Trampier Manor. A gravelly voice answered, yes. My father's butler, Bulgaire. I said, Lord Trampier, please. Who's this? Bulgaire, it's me, Andrew. Very good, Master Andrew. His lordship is at golf. Would you have him call me, please? Your number? Have him call him, Jones and Green. Then have them put him through to Green's office. He must call me right back. I wouldn't say that unless it was urgent. I should think not, Master Andrew. I'll let him know right away. Thank you. Goodbye. Now I waited. I started drumming my fingers on the desk. Then I looked around and wondered if Roy kept scotch in his office anywhere. Just before I was about to get up and start poking around, the phone rang. I picked it up and heard, Andrew. Hello, Da. What is it? I'm back. Obviously, since you're sitting in Roy Green's office. What is your urgent business? I'm playing around with the judge. I'm forming a corporation, and I need 1 more director. I need you to be a director, Da. What? Have you lost your mind? You called me up out of the blue and asked me to be director. That does not make any sense. Da, remember our talk before I left about how Trampiers did big things? I'm telling you now, big things, the biggest things are happening. And it is a small matter in the grand scheme for you to be a director. You don't have to do anything. Royal will just send you a few documents. You better not be screwing anything up. Is that a yes? 1 condition. You come straight here as soon as you've settled things in the city and tell me exactly what is going on. I'm not sure that's a good idea. That's my condition. Take it or leave it. I was stuck. Perhaps my mysterious malefactors could get to my family, whether I visited them or not, and I had to have another director. Okay, Dad, you be a director, and I'll stop by in a few days or so. Deal? Have Roy send the papers, and I'll sign after I see. Bye. He hung up. Now that I had my directors, I just had to make it legal. Green was back in 45 minutes, not 30. His expression said, "You're still here?" His voice said, "Got everything straightened out?" "Yes." I handed him a sheet. "Here's the contact information from my other directors. They're expecting papers. Now, do I have to sign something to be a director?" "Correct." He looked down, then back up and said, "Your father's a director." He sounded surprised. "Yes, I'll have your documents printed up in reception. How will you be paying for this?" "Just send me the bill, Roy. As soon as I get this up and running, I'll be shooting money." "Okay. Perhaps I could take a little equity in the corporation in lieu of fees. That would also cover future legal services, of course." I thought if he wanted equity, he could have volunteered to be a director, but he didn't. "That's okay. Just charge me the regular plus 50%, yeah? I appreciate your assistance in this matter." He frowned and said, "More than fair. Just sign downstairs. You can be on your way, and I'll take care of the rest. Capital?" "Capital. Thank you so much, Roy. I couldn't have done this without you." He grinned. "It's my pleasure. If there's anything else I can do for graced out, just let me know." "Absolutely. You have a fabulous day." I went downstairs, signed my papers, and left. Back on the street, I took a deep breath. I only had one more thing to do in London. I went to the local offices of the Tetsu Corporation. It was an anonymous building with reflective curtained glass walls. In the lobby, there was only a single desk with a single security guard. I walked up and he said, "Can I help you?" "Yes, thank you. My name is Andrew Gray, and I need to send a secure message to Dr. Tetsu." The guard looked at me like I had two heads. "In here." I smiled and said, "I wouldn't think so. Still, I need to send him a message." "What did you say your name was?" "Andrew Gray." He tapped on a keyboard and frowned. "You're not in the system." My smile was aching. "Of course, who do I speak to about that message?" The guard snapped. "Sir, you can't expect to walk in off the street and send a message to Dr. Tetsu. It isn't done." "I can't? How about Julian Frost? Can I send him a message?" "I don't know who that is." It seemed Frost kept a low profile in the organization, which was to be expected, I suppose. "Type his name in, see if he's in the system." He grumbled and tapped at his keyboard. Then he hissed, "God damn it!" "Excuse me?" "My screen just froze up." His phone rang. "Yes?" He looked at me, bewildered. "Yes?" "He said his name's Andrew Gray." "Okay, bye." He said to me, "Wait here, someone will be with you shortly." He turned his computer off, then turned it on again. A minute later, a bookish, bespectacled man appeared in the lobby. He shook my hand and said in a posh accent, "I'm Sean Wiley, security chief for this office. Pleased to meet you, Mr. Gray." "You don't know that." "Yes, quite right. Follow me, please." He walked to the side of the lobby and unlocked a door to a little windowless room. It had a table and chair, and on the table was a black laptop computer plugged into the wall. Wiley flipped it open and tapped on it and said, "Have a seat." He went to the other side of the table and turned his back. I sat down and saw a black screen with white letters. "Hello, Andrew, it's Shuichiro," it said. Not sure what to do. I did nothing. More letters appeared. "Why are you just sitting there? You said you had a message." I typed, "How do I know it's you? I built the Eiffel Tower in a box of dust." Okay, my message was for you to make contact with me and Trampier Dale to discuss. He typed over me. "We've made contact. What did you have to say? This connection is secure. My lawyer is making the corporation. Good. What's it called? Greystoke. Ridiculous. When'll it be done?" Soon, I think. "Why are you going to Trampier Dale?" "It was a condition for incorporating, plus it's on the way to Scapa Flow." "Why are you going to Scapa Flow?" I paused, then typed, "Have you heard of Trivet?" "Yes, why?" "What do you know about them?" "Not much. Seems connected to Brit government and A.K. Kronenscheld." "What is A.K. Kronenscheld?" "Who, not what. August Casper Kronenscheld, a competitor of mine, spies on Asgard." "Is he an albino?" "No, why?" "I met an albino who says he runs Trivet. He invited me to see a big secret around Scapa Flow. I have to go see it, and then I'll tell you what it is." "Fine. When are you going to be in Trampier Dale?" "Maybe 3 or 4 days." "Okay. I'm sending some people to meet you there, help you set up the corporation." "Thanks. I have to go. Bye." All the words vanished from the screen, replaced by login. I said, "I guess I'm done here, Mr. Wiley. Thanks for your assistance." "Don't mention it." He closed the laptop and opened the door for me. I walked out, and he relocked the room. "If you come back, ask for me, yeah?" "Will do, thanks again." I turned to go and stopped. "Oh, there is one more favor I'd like to ask of you. Is it possible to arrange a totally anonymous transport from your parking garage to Sterling Town? It's for security purposes, official Tetsu business. Of course, look for a black Mercedes on level 1. Tell the driver your name is Chad." "Mr. Wiley, you are amazing." I went to the parking garage. In minutes, a black Mercedes rolled in. "This must be my ride," I said to myself, hopping into the back seat. The driver appeared to be African, dressed in tan slacks and a blue button-down shirt. He said, "Your name, please?" "Chad. We're going to Sterling, right?" "That is correct." "Marvelous. I hope you enjoy the trip as much as I do." "Oh, yes. I've never been to Scotland. I'm looking forward to it. It's a lovely country." We got going, and I sprawled out in the back seat, facing a bit sideways. This made it easier for me to look out the rear window. The driver said, "Will you put on your seatbelt, sir?" "No, thank you. You weren't planning on crashing the car, were you?" "Ha ha, no, it is just customary. Well, my good man, shortly we will be out of London and into the country, and what is customary will be different." "That's fine." We rode in silence for a few minutes. Anyway, he said, "Are you Scottish?" "Yes, sir. Where are you from?" "I was born in Cameroon, but I've lived in London since I was 6 years old, praise the Lord." "Fantastic. I suppose you're a British subject now?" "Yes, it is great to be British." "You follow politics? Got a favorite party?" "Ho, ho, ho, I find it advisable to not discuss politics, sir." I thought I heard a sly glance. "A wise policy, Mr. I didn't catch your name?" "Francois, but call me Frank." "A wise policy, as I said. But I happen to discuss politics for a living, so I am polite and professional about it. I swear I won't hold your erroneous opinions against you. I'm just curious." "How can you swear to that? You may find me offensive after all." "Okay, I can promise to bite my tongue if I am offended. I can do that." Frank said, "Very well. I like the Independence Party." "Really? Why?" "I like their economic policies. Plus, I feel they have more integrity, less corruption." "I won't argue with that." "What about you? Whom do you like? Chad?" It took me a second to realize he was talking to me. "I'm Tory. My family's Tory since there's been Tories. They're not perfect, but they seem to produce better prime ministers on average." Frank scoffed. "Like Thomas West? He is a crook. Seems like every other day someone from his government is indicted for one crime or another. And most of those alleged crimes are bollocks. Lord Morningstone has rigged the courts to harass innocent people. I mean, they're not all innocent, but most of them haven't done anything wrong. Besides crossing Morningstone. Of course, I had first-hand knowledge that the Prime Minister was 1 degree of separation from Prince Charlie. Maybe 0, but so was I. I said, "I'll admit there does seem to be a cloud over the Prime Minister. But if the alternative is Chester Lee, I'll stick with what we've got." "That is true," said Frank. "It's a shame we must choose between a gangster and a Marxist." As Machiavelli said, we must deal with the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. Sad. Very sad. He got quiet. I kept looking out the back window. No obvious signs of pursuit. Depending on traffic, it would take at least another 30 minutes to break free of Greater London, and I wouldn't let my guard down until then. Time seemed to pass slower than usual, and it gave me immense relief when we reached the M25. About an hour out of London, I started to relax. If there was any pursuit, it was beyond my ability to discern. After I relaxed, I got bored. The main route between London and Leeds traversed a giant suburb. For hundreds of kilometers, I could expect to see a parade of big towns and small cities, each similar. This was dreary to me. My chief preference at all times was to be in the countryside or small towns. I liked open land or the agricultural variety or wilderness where nature could riot. All the time I spent in London was due to professional necessity, but I liked it better than the suburbs. In its way, London itself was a wilderness of humans. The streets and buildings formed a vast habitat, and one was always on their toes, watching for tigers and snakes and crocodiles. It would have been nice if I was able to take a nap, but I was never able to do that in moving vehicles. Now I recalled why I avoided trips of this kind. I disliked any voyage, but for long distances, a brief hop through the air or the solitude of a ship was preferable to land travel. Frank began talking again, and I welcomed the diversion. With my encouragement, he held forth with a series of interesting stories. One thing I remember well was his description of the library in his childhood village back in Cameroon. The roof of the library was in the shape of an open book. Appropriate for a library, one might think. But it was a roof shaped like a V. As a result, any rain that got on the roof ran right into the middle, and it rained a lot there. Soon the ceiling was full of leaks, and all the books inside got moldy. I asked Frank how this implausible roof occurred, and he explained that his village got a grant from an American pastor to build a library, but the contract to build it went to a crony of the president. The crony, it seemed, didn't care how long the library lasted. He just wanted to skim off the grant money. Perhaps the upside-down roof was his idea of a joke. This incident, Frank told me, was emblematic to him of the sort of institutional corruption he detested, and he found it irritating. There is so much of it in Britain as well. I said, it irritates me too, Frank, but it's baked into human nature, part of the overhead cost of civilization. People take advantage of situations. Frank shook his head. That is unethical. How is it unethical to take advantage of a situation? That's not categorically true, I don't think. What I mean to say is that it is unethical to take something just because you can and to have no thought about the consequences. Perhaps that's the key. When there are no consequences for unethical behavior, then you get more of it. But when someone does something unethical, or more to the point, immoral, do they not endanger their immortal soul, regardless of immediate consequences? Why don't people think about that? Do they imagine they are no more than flies in the summer? That may work for you, Frank, and for me, I suppose, but many people rely on immediate consequences. Yes, there is a place for immediate justice, he said grimly. The most effective form of justice, in my opinion, is to speak the truth. What do you mean? Let's say someone is a pickpocket. If everyone pretends it isn't happening, they'll continue to plunder. But when the thief is identified as such, then their crime spree comes to an end. Live in truth, said Frank. Huh? I heard someone say, live in truth. He meant that to survive, a society had to face the reality of their situation. They had to respect what gave them life and shun what harmed them. My sentiments exactly. We kept talking. I found him to be one of the more praiseworthy Britons I could recall meeting, native-born or otherwise, and he had a remarkable gift of gab. The time flew by. I was surprised to find we were approaching the Scottish border. I said, "We're running out of time to piss in England. Let's stop, shall we?" We went off the main road somewhere northwest of Newcastle and located a fast food restaurant with a decent loo and got some potato and chicken-based fried food. Then I had Frank stop at a beverage store. A little food made me realize how sober I was, and a pint of scotch would be more than sufficient to make the last leg of the journey to Stirling. We got back on the A68 and were shortly into the wilds of Northumbria, the part of England furthest from London. None of the landscape made me happy. I saw fields, forest, rolling hills, pastures, lonely farms, and a rocky crag here and there. Southern Scotland was similar, so I could enjoy these views until we got to Lothian, though by then the sun would have set. I had my severalth sip of scotch and said, "This is where the Roman Church got its start." "Absurd. Does this look like Rome?" "I'm serious. About 14 centuries ago, the king of Northumbria, here," I indicated the countryside, "was considering converting to Christianity. But what kind? He received missionaries from both the Roman Church and the Celtic Church." "The Celtic Church?" "Yes. When the Roman Empire collapsed, many intellectuals fled to Ireland, the edge of the world, as it were, to escape the chaos and anarchy. This made Ireland a center of culture for a few centuries, and the Celtic Church emerged as an independent sect in competition with Rome. How was this Celtic Church different? I'm sure I don't know. But what happened was that the king of Northumbria chose Rome as the source for priests. After that, the rest of Britain went with Rome. Had King Oswiu gone the other way, it's possible the Roman Church would have remained a Mediterranean enterprise. Frank said, "You're drunk." "What? No! Not even slightly. Here." I passed my pint between the front seats. "I'm being rude. Have a sip." "Sir, it is not my habit to drink and drive." "I didn't hear a no." "Plus, it's not sanitary. You have been drinking from that bottle." "Not to worry, Frank. The bottle never touched my lips. I just tip it straight back. Not easy in a moving vehicle, but I am an expert. Have a sip. It's been a long trip, and I feel like we are friends." I wagged the bottle at him. "You were the devil." He grabbed the bottle and tipped it straight back, then returned it, coughing and spluttering. "That was terrible." "It's shite scotch for sure. Nothing like a good Trampier scotch. Those are the best." We kept chatting, him having a few more sips. In Lothian, we passed through the urban part of Scotland, taking the circumferential roads around Edinburgh. After an hour of that, we got to the heart of Scotland, County Stirling. We arrived in Stirling town, ancient and noble, replete with many medieval buildings. I directed Frank to a Trampier-owned pub, the Unicorn, established in 1737. Our pub had its own parking lot, and his Mercedes was safe there. We walked into the pub. The outside was the original fieldstone masonry. The inside walls were sheetrock painted in Trampier tartan, a feast for the eyes. But the prized decoration of the common room was the tin ceiling. The whole thing was painted with the image of a gigantic rose. I pointed this out to Frank and explained the significance of the term "under the rose," or sub rosa in Latin. He was impressed. The pub was moderately busy, but still with plenty of room at the bar. I told Frank everything is on the house. "What would you like?" "I'll have a Cape Cod." "Huh? What's that?" "Cranberry juice and vodka. Very healthy." "If you say so." A young bartender came up and eyed us with suspicion. I said, "My friend will have a cranberry and vodka, and I will have a Bombay Sapphire and tonic." She came back shortly and set her drinks down. £10. I said, "It's on the house." She bristled. "Are you mental? These drinks cost money." I won't argue. I handed her £100 note and said, "Keep the change." Her mood improved as she snatched that up. Frank said, "You are funny. Why would you say it's on the house?" "That's okay. She doesn't know who I am. I haven't been here in several years." "And who are you?" "I believe we've been introduced. My name is Chad." He shook his head. "No, I don't think so. Live in truth, my friend." "You are correct. I have been traveling under an assumed identity for security reasons. But you look like a man who can keep a secret. My name is Andrew Gray." A voice behind me said, "Is it now?" I whipped around in my seat to see the head bouncer emeritus of the Unicorn. "Billy!" I exclaimed. "It's been a dog's years since I've seen you." "Aye, Master Andrew, it has. What are you doing here?" "Just passing through. Oh, would you do me a favor and arrange a car to bring me to the manor? Me dad wants to see me." Billy said, "Who's your friend?" "Billy meet Frank and vice versa. Frank here drove me all the way up from London. He's a trooper." "Pleased to meet you, Frank. First time to Scotland?" "Yes, lovely country. Much prettier than London, and noisy." "Never left Scotland," Billy said, "so I can compare it to other lands, but I hear it ranks favorably. So you're from London, are you?" "Originally from Cameroon, but yes." Billy scratched his head. "Cameroon? That's sort of a nut, isn't it?" "No. Perhaps you were thinking of a pistachio." Billy looked confused, and I tried to keep a straight face, but I couldn't help snickering. Frank looked over at me, straight-faced, as if wondering what was the matter with me. Then Billy started laughing. Short of breath, he said, They didn't sound the same," and kept laughing, leaning into the bar for support. I was laughing out loud now, and Frank was grinning and shaking his head. I don't think he expected that joke to make much of an impact. Rubbing his eyes, Billy said, "He is a Scottish sense of humour, your friend does, Andrew. Tell you what, I will drive you to the manor. Frank will eat and drink on the house here and get a room to sleep it off. Is that all right with you, Frank?" "Yes, Billy, thank you." "Okay, you two hang loose while I arrange things." Billy left. I said, "Great country, huh?" "Yes, I look forward to returning someday." "Do you have a business card?" He handed me one. "Thanks. I appreciate what you've done. I'd love to drink with you all night and hear more of your stories, but I have urgent business. For quite some time, I fear." "I see. I wonder, what is your business?" I looked around and whispered, "I'm working for the possible salvation of humanity." Frank nodded. "Aren't we all?" I saw Billy approaching. "Inshallah, we will meet again, Frank." His eyes narrowed and he said, "Are you a Muslim?" "No, why do you ask?" "You say Inshallah. It is Arabic." "Pardon me. I just think it's easier to say than it will be as God wills it. I like the sentiment. Still the same God, isn't it?" "Yes, forgive me, Andrew. It is a nice sentiment. I'm just a little sensitive. My family left Cameroon because of the war. The Sahara Emirate, you know." "I know." Billy lurked over my shoulder. and I stood up. Au revoir, mon ami. Please enjoy your stay at the Unicorn. I shall. It was a blessing to meet your acquaintance, Andrew Graham. All right, Billy boomed in. I am to take this pup to his da forthwith, and you, Mr. Frank, don't drink too fast, because you got to drink with me when I get back here, deal? It's a deal, Billy.